I made up my mind I was going to start a new life without him. The words just hung there in the fancy restaurant where we were supposed to be celebrating my daughter's college graduation. Gregory, my husband of 25 years, stood there with his champagne glass still in the air, his big announcement replacing the toast he was supposed to be giving for Amelia's achievement. All the clinking of forks and knives stopped cold. Conversations died halfway through sentences. About 50 faces turned toward us, flicking their eyes between Gregory and me, waiting to see what I'd do. Waiting for the tears, the yelling, maybe even a dramatic exit, just like in the movies. But instead I smiled and said, "Congratulations on your honesty. My name's Rachel Whitmore. I'm 54 years old, and until this very second I'd been playing the part of the perfect wife and mother. I put my own dreams on pause to back Gregory through 3 business startups, 2 major career shifts, and more, finding himself, phases than I could count. I raised our brilliant daughter, Amelia, who's sitting beside me now still wearing her graduation cap, her face frozen in shock. From the corner of my eye I spotted Lindsay Harper's, Gregory's girlfriend, young enough to be his daughter, squirming awkwardly at a table in the back. She was surrounded by people I had thought were my friends for years, friends who, apparently, had known about the affair and decided to keep it to themselves. Cassandra, who used to come to our Christmas parties. Cassandra, who once called me for career advice like I was her mentor. Keeping my cool, I reached into my purse and pulled out a cream-colored envelope, sealed and ready. I set it down softly next to Gregory's plate. "What's this?" he asked, his smug grin starting to slip. "Something for you to read later," I said, keeping my voice nice and steady. Then I turned to Amelia, who looked pale and heartbroken. I leaned in, kissed her on the cheek, and whispered, "I'm so proud of you, sweetheart. Today is still all about you." I stood up, smoothed out my dress, and spoke loud enough for everyone to hear. "Please enjoy your meal. I hope you all have a lovely afternoon." With that, I walked out of the restaurant, my chin held high, feeling 50 pairs of eyes glued to me. The heavy door swung shut behind me, cutting off the beginning of the hushed whispers. Outside, the Augusta heat hit me like a brick wall, but honestly, it felt good. For the first time in years, I could really breathe. Behind me, I heard the restaurant door crash open, and Gregory's voice followed, no longer cocky, but shrill and panicked. "Bianca? What the hell is this? What have you done?" I didn't even slow down. Instead, I let myself crack a little smile. That envelope I gave him? It was the first move in the plan I'd been carefully putting together for months. See, I'd always been the practical one in our marriage. Gregory dreamed big and chased shiny ideas while I made sure the family stayed grounded. I was the one who saved up for Amelia's college, especially after Gregory threw money into his buddy's restaurant idea, which, surprise, didn't last long. I was the one working extra hours at Drinkwater Corporation when Gregory had his midlife meltdown and quit his steady job to follow his passion, making handmade furniture. That little dream fizzled out after about 6 months, once he realized it was harder than it looked. Meanwhile, my own dream, opening a financial consulting firm for women, just sat on the back burner. After Amelia graduates, I kept telling myself. After Gregory settles down again. But about 3 months ago, I spotted some weird charges in our joint bank accounts, little transfers going to an account I didn't recognize. After 20 years of managing our finances, they stuck out like a sore thumb. I could have confronted Gregory right then and there. But something made me hold back. Call it gut instinct. Or maybe it was just the slow-growing distance between us that told me there was more to the story. So I started quietly digging. And what I found was way worse than I thought. Turns out, Gregory had been siphoning money into a hidden account for over a year. He was wining and dining Cassandra at fancy restaurants, buying her expensive jewelry, even shopping around for beachfront property, all while preaching to me about tightening our belts for retirement. Then came the text messages I stumbled onto when he left his phone unlocked. Texts about their new life together. Texts about how he was finally breaking free. Text about how everything would change the day after Amelia's graduation, the day he chose for his grand exit. What Gregory either forgot, or never really understood, was that I'd spent 30 years as a financial professional. I knew how to sniff out a money trail. I knew how to track down hidden assets. And most importantly, I still remembered that prenuptial agreement we signed almost 3 decades ago, back when I came from more money than he did. The very prenup he pushed for, thinking it would protect him, had a clause tucked inside that was going to be his downfall. While Gregory was sneaking around with Cassandra, I was building my case. I consulted lawyers. I documented every shady transfer. I gathered proof of their affair. And I got the divorce papers ready. I had timed everything just right. I knew Gregory would want to wait until after Amelia's graduation, thinking he was sparing her the heartache on her big day. What he didn't count on was me serving him divorce papers that very morning before he could even get to his little speech. The papers were already filed in court, tucked away nice and neat where he couldn't touch them yet. Gregory never realized I was always 3 steps ahead of him. I didn't bother going back to the restaurant. Instead, I drove straight home, back to the big colonial house we bought 15 years ago in Augusta's historic district. The very same house that Gregory had already promised to Cassandra according to the text I'd found. He had no idea I knew about that. I pulled into the driveway and stepped inside the house we had shared for over a decade. Everything inside looked exactly the same, the family photos lined up on the walls, the old grandfather clock that once belonged to my dad, the beat-up leather couch where Gregory and I used to sit and dream about the future. But even though nothing had moved, everything felt different now. I went upstairs and opened up the closet in our master bedroom. Sure enough, Gregory's clothes were already packed up in suitcases, hidden way in the back, ready for his grand getaway tomorrow. I couldn't help but smile at how predictable he was. Always organized when it came to his wardrobe, but a complete mess where it really mattered. Meanwhile, my phone buzzed like crazy, texts pouring in from friends at the restaurant, from Amelia, and even from Gregory's sister, Diana, who had flown in for the graduation. I only answered Amelia. Told her, "I'm okay. This isn't your burden to carry. Enjoy your graduation. We'll talk tonight. I love you." I'd been shielding Amelia from all of this for months, not wanting to weigh her down during her final year at school. She'd probably be mad at me for keeping it from her. But deep down, I knew she'd get it someday. Amelia had picked up my practicality along with her dad's easy charm, a combination that helped her graduate with honors. 3 hours later, I heard Gregory's car crunch into the driveway. The front door flew open so hard it banged against the wall. "Bianca," he bellowed, his voice booming through the house. "Where are you?" I was sitting at the kitchen table, closing my laptop calmly as he charged in, his face red and furious, the envelope crumpled in his hand. "What the hell is this supposed to mean?" he barked, waving the divorce papers at me. "You served me divorce papers? On today of all days." I stayed cool. "I thought it fit pretty well with your plans," I said. "You wanted to start your new life, I'm just helping speed things along." "You had no right to, I had every right," I cut in firmly. "Just like you had every right to pick Cassandra. We all make choices, Gregory." He straightened up, trying to pull himself together. "The prenup's expired," he said, getting that smug look back. "Any decent lawyer will tell you that." I let a little smile slip. "Actually, it hasn't," I said. "Section 12 says real clear that the fidelity clause stays in effect as long as the marriage does. Maybe your lawyer would have told you that, if you bothered hiring one." I watched the blood drain right out of his face as it hit him. That prenup he fought for to protect himself was now about to cost him everything. The house here in Augusta. The vacation home down in Savannah. His chunk of our retirement savings. That big announcement he made at the restaurant? It had just turned into the most expensive speech of his life. "You can't do this to me," Gregory said, dropping down onto the couch like a man who just got the wind knocked out of him. "We built this life together. And you chose to end it," I said, voice steady, just not the way you thought you would. His phone buzzed in his pocket, over and over. He glanced at it but didn't pick up. No doubt it was Cassandra, wondering why he wasn't sticking to their big master plan. "You've always been cold and calculating, Bianca," Gregory said, switching tactics, trying to guilt me. "But this is heartless." "And what about our history?" he said, voice getting softer. 28 years. Doesn't that mean anything to you?" I looked at him, really looked. This was the man I'd loved nearly half my life. The same man who had held my hand through 2 miscarriages before we finally had Amelia. The man who once surprised me with a weekend trip to Charleston for our 10th anniversary. When had he changed? Or maybe he'd always been this man and I was just too loyal, too blind to see it. "Our history meant the world to me," I said, telling him the truth. "That's exactly why your betrayal cut so deep." His face softened a little, like maybe he thought he still had a chance. "Maybe we can fix this," he said, reaching for me with words. "I made a mistake. People make mistakes." "This wasn't a mistake, Gregory," I said quietly. "This was a plan. A year-long plan where you moved money around behind my back. Where you shopped for houses with her. Where you plotted to announce our breakup in front of a crowd to humiliate me." His face hardened again, the charm slipping away. "You're exaggerating," he said, trying to downplay it. "Am I?" I said. I picked up my phone, opened the recording app, and hit play. There was his voice clear as day. After the graduation, I'll tell her it's over. A public setting is better. She won't cause a scene. Then Cassandra's voice chimed in. And she has no idea about the money. Gregory again, laughing. None. Bianca trusts me completely. That's her weakness. The color drained from his face so fast I thought he might pass out. You recorded me? He stammered. That's illegal. Not in Georgia, I said calmly, as long as one person in the conversation consents. And especially not inside my own home. I paused for a second, then added. I didn't record your little romantic moments with Cassandra. I'm not cruel. I only recorded the parts where you plotted to steal from me. Gregory jumped to his feet, looking rattled. I need to make some calls, he said, pacing. Good idea, I said calmly. Your attorney might be a smart place to start. I'll stay at Diana's tonight, he sputtered, like it was just dawning on him. My sister's house? I gave him a nod. Yep. She's not exactly thrilled with you either. She's the one who first caught you and Cassandra sneaking around last Christmas. He blinked, thrown off. She didn't tell me right away, I went on. She confronted you first. And you swore up and down it was nothing, promised her you'd end it. I let that sink in before adding. When she saw you hadn't, she came to me. That knocked the wind out of him. He never once imagined his own sister would side with me. Everybody's betraying me, he mumbled under his breath. Ironic, isn't it? I said, picking up my purse in the overnight bag I had packed earlier. You've got until tomorrow night to move your stuff out of the house. After that, the locks get changed. I was halfway to the door when he called after me, a crack of real desperation in his voice. What about Amelia? Have you even thought about what this'll do to her? That hit a nerve. I stopped cold, my calm finally giving way to the anger boiling underneath. Don't you dare drag our daughter into this, I snapped, turning around. You weren't thinking about her when you were planning your beach house life with Cassandra. His phone buzzed again. He finally looked at it and groaned. Problem? I asked, raising an eyebrow. Cassandra's already moved into the apartment, he muttered. I couldn't help the small smile that tugged at my lips. You mean the apartment you signed for under both your names? The lease you thought you finalized last month? Gregory nodded slowly, still not quite understanding. You might want to double-check with the leasing office, I told him. That application got flagged for credit issues. It never went through. I paused. They called the home phone to verify some things. I handled it. I didn't wait for a response. I just walked out the door, leaving Gregory alone to face the beginning of the downfall he never saw coming. His perfectly plotted new life was unraveling faster than he could even process it. Diana's bungalow sat across town, close to the university where she taught literature. When I pulled up, she was already at the door, waiting, and pulled me into a tight hug. I just got off the phone with Amelia, she said, tugging me inside. Are you all right? I'm better than I thought I'd be, I admitted, following her into the kitchen where a bottle of wine was already open. I never thought Gregory would make such a fool of himself, Diana said, pouring us each a glass. At the restaurant? In front of everyone? He's lost his damn mind. I accepted the glass and shrugged. It was meant to humiliate me. Make the break public so I couldn't fight back without looking crazy. Diana's face hardened. My brother always did love a bit of drama, she said. But this is a whole new low. We settled in her sunroom, cozy among the potted plants and shelves packed with books. Diana had never married. She loved her independence and her teaching life. Over the years, I'd sometimes envied that freedom she had. So she asked after a sip of wine, what exactly did you put in that envelope to shake him up so bad? I told her about the divorce filing, the records of his sneaky financial moves. And most importantly, about the prenup that meant Gregory was walking away with a lot less than he planned. The prenup, Diana said, shaking her head. I remember when he pushed for it. Dad had just given him that loan for his first business and he was so paranoid about protecting it. She gave a bitter little laugh. The irony is just beautiful. My phone rang, buzzing across the coffee table. It was Amelia. I took a deep breath and answered. Mom, she said right away, her voice tight with emotion. I'm coming over to Aunt Diana's. You don't have to, honey. I'm already on my way, she cut me off. Dad's telling everyone you've lost your mind, that you've been scheming for months. He's saying awful things. Of course he was. Gregory always knew how to spin a story to make himself the victim. Let him talk, I said, keeping my voice calm. The truth will come out soon enough. 20 minutes later, Amelia arrived, still in her graduation dress, her makeup smudged from crying. She collapsed into my arms just like she used to after bad dreams when she was little. Why didn't you tell me? she asked, her voice muffled against my shoulder. I didn't want to ruin your final semester, I said gently. You worked so hard for today. She pulled away, wiping at her eyes. Well, Dad managed to ruin it anyway. We moved into the living room where I told her everything. How I found out about the affair. How Gregory had been shifting money. And the plans he and Cassandra had made behind our backs. I knew something was wrong with Dad, Amelia said, her voice thick. He was always distracted, glued to his phone. But I never thought. She trailed off. None of us want to see the worst in the people we love, Diana said quietly. Right then, my phone buzzed again, a text from Mark Davidson, my lawyer. The emergency filing had gone through. The accounts Gregory had been funneling money into were now frozen, pending the divorce. He'd still have enough for basic living expenses, but not nearly enough to buy fancy beachfront property with Cassandra. I showed the message to Diana and Amelia. Good, Amelia said, fire back in her voice. He deserves it. Her loyalty warmed me, but I still knew better. He's still your father, I reminded her softly. Your relationship with him is yours to figure out, I said to Amelia, trying to stay calm. This fight is between me and him. Amelia shook her head hard. Maybe someday, she said. But right now? I can't even look at him. Her voice cracked a little. He hugged me this morning, told me how proud he was, she said bitterly. All while planning to blow up our family just a few hours later. Before I could answer, the doorbell rang, slicing through the tension in the room. Diana went to get it. When she came back, her face was tight with worry. It's Gregory, she said. And he's not alone. I braced myself as Diana led Gregory and Cassandra into the living room. Cassandra couldn't even stand still, shifting from foot to foot, her eyes darting around like a trapped animal. She was 37, not exactly a teenager, but still 17 years younger than me. She had shoulder-length blonde hair and that kind of glossy, fake confidence that comes from never having faced real trouble. Gregory, on the other hand, didn't look nervous. He looked furious. His earlier desperation had hardened into pure rage. Bianca, you need to quit this nonsense, he barked. Unfreeze the accounts. Let's be adults about this and talk. Amelia stood up, sliding just slightly in front of me like a shield. Maybe you should have tried being an adult before you humiliated Mom in front of everyone, she said sharply. Gregory's eyes went wide, like he was just now realizing Amelia was part of the conversation. Amelia, this isn't your business, he said, trying to wave her off. Not my business, she repeated, her voice rising. You blew up our family on my graduation day, and you think it doesn't involve me? Cassandra reached out to touch Gregory's arm. Greg, maybe we should go, she said quietly. He shook her off like an annoyed dog. No, he snapped. I'm not leaving until Bianca agrees to act rationally. Diana folded her arms across her chest and stared him down. Funny, she said. From where I'm standing, Bianca seems like the only rational one here. You're the one who made this mess, Gregory. I stayed seated, just watching it all unfold. For years, I had been the one smoothing over arguments, patching things up, keeping everyone smiling. It had worn me down to the bone. I was done with that job. The accounts will stay frozen until the preliminary hearing, I said evenly. 3 days from now. 3 days. Gregory stammered. What am I supposed to do for 3 days? You have your personal account, I reminded him. The one you've been sneaking money into for over a year. It should tide you over. At that, Cassandra's head snapped toward him. You have a separate account? She asked, sharp as a whip. How much is in it? And just like that, cracks started forming between them. Gregory ignored her, pretending he hadn't heard the question. This is vindictive, Bianca, he said, his voice turning bitter. This isn't who you are. Maybe you never really knew who I was, I said, meeting his eyes. Just like I clearly never knew who you really were. Amelia turned her gaze on Cassandra, her voice cutting and cold. Did you know he was going to blow everything up like that? She asked. At my graduation party? Cassandra looked away, her cheeks going pink. I thought. She said weakly. I thought he was going to talk to your mom privately. The announcement today was unexpected. Gregory shot her a dirty look, like she had just betrayed him in front of everyone. Their little partnership was already starting to crumble. I think it's time for you both to leave, Diana said sharply, her tone leaving no room for argument. You've done enough damage for one day. Amelia, Gregory pleaded, reaching toward her. You understand, don't you? Sometimes people just grow apart. But Amelia's face turned to stone. I understand that you're a coward, she said, her voice like a blade. You didn't even have the guts to tell Mom privately. You were robbing our family blind while I was working 2 jobs just to help pay for my textbooks. Because you said money was too tight. Gregory turned pale as a ghost. That's not what happened, he mumbled. It's exactly what happened, Amelia shot back. Please leave, Dad. I can't even look at you right now. The silence that followed was thick enough to choke on. Finally, Gregory turned on his heel and headed for the door, Cassandra trailing after him. At the doorway, he turned back one last time and locked eyes with me. This isn't over, Bianca, he said, his voice low and full of anger. I'll fight you. I stood up, met his glare head-on and said, You're welcome to try. After the door slammed shut behind them, Amelia sank down next to me on the couch, tears running down her cheeks. I've never talked to Dad like that, she said between sobs. I wrapped an arm around her and pulled her close. Sometimes standing up for what's right hurts like hell, I said softly. Diana came back from the kitchen, carrying 3 fresh glasses of wine. She raised her glass high. To new beginnings, she said with a little smile. Indeed, I thought, clinking my glass against hers. This ending wasn't the end at all. It was the start of something brand new. The preliminary hearing happened a few days later in a small courtroom on a rainy Tuesday morning. I showed up with Philip, my attorney, a sharp, steady man who had helped me prepare for this moment. Gregory came dragging in with some young associate he'd hired at the last minute. A guy who clearly knew corporate law but not much about family court. Another rush mistake in a long line of them. The judge, a no-nonsense older woman with sharp eyes, flipped through the prenuptial agreement carefully. This document seems to be in order, she said, peering over her glasses at Gregory's lawyer. Are you contesting its validity? The young lawyer cleared his throat awkwardly. Your Honor, we believe the agreement expired given the length of the marriage. The judge didn't even blink. Section 18 clearly states, she read aloud, that the duration is for the life of the marriage, plus any legal proceedings tied to its end. There's no expiration date listed anywhere, the judge said, flipping through the papers. Gregory leaned over, whispering urgently to his lawyer, who looked more uncomfortable by the second. And furthermore, the judge continued, there's clear evidence of systematic fund transfers, a violation of the financial disclosure rules under Section 23. She thumbed through more documents, then looked up, sharp as ever. I'm ordering the freeze on the joint accounts to stay in place until full financial discovery is complete, she said. Mr. Caldwell's personal account will remain available to him for basic needs. She tapped her pen against the desk. And as per the infidelity clause in the prenuptial agreement, Mrs. Caldwell will maintain possession of the family home throughout the proceedings. Gregory's face turned dark red. This is outrageous, he muttered under his breath, loud enough for me to catch. The judge narrowed her eyes at him. Mr. Caldwell, she said sternly, I suggest you reread the agreement you signed. Carefully. She gavelled the hearing to a close. We'll reconvene in 30 days once discovery is complete. As we walked out into the courthouse hallway, Gregory hurried to catch up with me. Bianca, please, he said, lowering his voice. Can't we be reasonable? 25 years has to mean something. I stopped just long enough to look him in the eye. It meant everything, I said quietly, until you decided it didn't. And then I kept walking, leaving him standing there in the corridor, finally starting to feel the weight of his own choices. Word spread quickly through our circle of friends. The phone calls started, some offering support, others clearly fishing for gossip. I kept it simple and dignified every time. Gregory and I are separating. These things happen. No more, no less. Meanwhile, Gregory's carefully built image, successful businessman, devoted family man, was falling apart. Without access to the frozen funds, he couldn't follow through on all the promises he'd made to Cassandra. The beachfront property they dreamed of? Gone. The flashy new car he put a down payment on? Cancelled. About 2 weeks after the hearing, Diana called, amusement dancing in her voice. Have you heard the latest? She said. Cassandra moved out. Already? I said, not really surprised, but the speed was impressive. Apparently, Diana continued, she found out Gregory's business isn't doing so hot. And those substantial savings he bragged about? Turns out they don't exist. I couldn't help laughing. He'd always been good at selling illusions. Meanwhile, I was busy rebuilding my life. The financial cushion I had quietly maintained, separate from Gregory, gave me the freedom to move forward on my own terms. I rented a small office downtown and finally started the financial consultancy I'd dreamed about for years. My first 2 clients were women going through divorces of their own. Word of mouth did the rest. I found my niche helping women navigate their finances through tough life changes, divorces, widowhood, career shifts. The work filled a space in me my old corporate job never had. Amelia, who just started a job with a marketing firm down in Charleston, called me all the time. "I'm so proud of you, Mom," she said after I told her about my growing client list. "You're helping people when they need it the most." "I'm just doing what I wish someone had done for me earlier," I told her. Helping women get prepared for whatever life throws at them. For the first time, people needed me not for emotional caregiving but for my brain, my expertise. It was a brand new feeling and it was powerful. The final divorce hearing came around 5 months later, on what would have been our 26th wedding anniversary. There was something fitting about that. Closing the book exactly 27 years later. Gregory looked rough. I later found out that without my financial guidance, his business had started tanking. Cassandra was long gone, already cozying up to a real estate developer in Savannah. Most of the friends who once filled our weekends had distanced themselves after learning the full story. The judge upheld the prenuptial agreement completely. Gregory walked away with his personal belongings, his crumbling business, and whatever was left in his private account after paying his lawyer. Barely enough for a small apartment. I kept the house, my retirement funds, and 70% of our joint investments, just like the prenup had promised in cases of infidelity. There was something beautifully poetic about that. The very document Gregory fought for all those years ago, thinking it would protect him, ended up being his downfall. As we were leaving the courtroom, Gregory approached me one last time. "I made a terrible mistake," he said, voice low. "Is there any chance we could?" "No," I interrupted, gentle but firm. "That door is closed." He nodded, looking hollowed out. "I understand," he said. And for once I believed he did. 5 months later, Caldwell Financial Transitions was booming. I had moved out of my little starter office into a bigger space, and hired 2 associates to help with the workload. I specialized in helping women take charge of their financial futures, especially when life took unexpected turns. Finally, after years of supporting everyone else, I was standing strong on my own 2 feet, and helping others learn to do the same.